Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Had Some Help, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Ino was sitting at the counter in her family flower shop when a shushin appeared in the room and Ino blinked as she saw a woman in a trench coat let go of something and screamed, "Anoiki, SS Tane's back," as she shushined away, never even looking at Ino. Ino blinked and went wide-eyed as she saw the cut-up and bruised body of Naruto bleeding across the floor. She quickly ran around the counter to Naruto's side and thought, "Not again," as she started to look at his wounds. Biting her lip, she quickly locks the door and picks Naruto up and grunts and thought, "God, H is heavier than he was last week," as she tried to drag him toward the stair but frowned and turned toward the front room and laid him on the couch instead. She quickly ran and grabbed the first aid supplies and came back and began taking off Naruto cloths and thought, "So that's why H is so heavy, theses weights," as she took him off as well and got him down to his boxes. She began to clean him up and wrap the wounds and frowned and thought, "H is burning up with a fever," as she ran to the kitchen and got a pan of water with ice in it along with several rags and came back and dipped the rag into the water and placed it on Naruto's forehead. She then went back to taking care of his wounds and thought, "What is that woman doing to him to do this much damage, and why is he healing slower than he did last week?" After she finished with his wounds, she got a blanket and covered him up. Over the next several hours she kept changing the rags, keeping him as cool as possible, while she would also rub his chest, arms and legs down with a rag as well. After one of the times changing his rags, she went and cleaned the blood of the floor and quickly went back to taking care of him. This went on well into the night with her sitting in a chair nearby. The next morning when Anoiki walked in, he saw Ino looking extremely tired and looked at the couch and asked, "What's going on, Ino, and why's Naruto here?" Ino jumped, not hearing her dad arrive, and said, "Some lady dropped him in the floor last night and left him bleeding all over the place. H has been running a fever all night long and his healing is slower than it was last week. I think something is wrong with him, daddy. I've been trying to keep him cool with ice water and rags while whipping the sweat off of him all night." Anoiki frowned and he walked over to Naruto and opened his eyes and mouth and looked at his fingernails and said, "So that's what it is," as he stepped back. Ino asked, "What?" Anoiki said, "H has been poisoned," making Ino wide-eyed. Before she could say anything, he held up his hand and said, "Relax. The lady who dropped him off is Anko, the poison expert of Konoha. If I had to guess, Shush is trying to make him immune to poison, but the only way to do it is to poison the person. If you do it correctly, then a fever like he has now along with some fatigue is all that he will suffer. You did good though, Ino, because I would say she gave him multiple types of poisons by the effects I see on his body, and that could have turned worse if he was not watched to ensure the fever got too high." Ino asked, "Then why is his healing so slow?" Anoiki said, "Most likely because his body is trying to deal with the poisons. Now why don't you go get you some sleep and I will keep an eye on him." Ino yawned and asked, "What about my team?" Anoiki said, "Go, I will send a message to your sensei and explain it. Don't worry." Ino yawned again and said, "All right, daddy," as she glanced at Naruto one more time before going upstairs. Anoiki quickly sent a message to Asuma and then picked Naruto up and thought, "He will be out probably all day if I had to guess." As he took Naruto up the stairs and he looked at his bed and frowned a moment and then thought, Let's see if what Yoshino told me is true," as he turned and took Naruto to Ino's room and saw Ino was still in her clothes she was in when he got home, and shook his head as he laid Naruto down beside her and grabbed the cover off the floor and covered them both up and quietly left. He then went downstairs and put a sign on the door that said "Closed due to family." And he went back upstairs and looked into Ino's room and saw Ino had turned and put her head on Naruto's chest and her arm on his shoulder, and he thought, "I guess Yoshino was right," as he went to his room and went to bed and thought, "Damn hangovers," as he went to sleep. Several hours later Ino snuggled into her pillow and thought, "Smells like the rain," as she moved her arm. She froze then and thought, "Wait, I don't have anything in my room that smells like the rain, and since when does my pillows move?" as she opened her eyes. She blinked and blinked again as she sat up and saw Naruto in her bed asleep, and she quickly checked herself, seeing she was still dressed, and thought, okay, before I K him, let me think, he was out cold when I went to sleep. Dad told me to get some sleep and he would watch Naruto. I don't think Naruto would come up here and get in bed with me, at least I hope not. It doesn't look like H's even woke up himself, so that means someone must have brought him up here. Daddy. As she saw red, and Naruto shivered from being cold since Ino had got off his chest and pulled the covers. Ino frowned and covered him back up and thought, he looks a little better than he did this morning. His color is returning. As she looked at him. As she watched him breath, she looked at his face and slowly reached her hand up and pulled it back a moment and thought, should I? I mean, I have always been curious about it. As she slowly reached her hand up and brushed her fingers across his whiskers, and Naruto moved his cheek into her hand, and she blinked and thought, no way. H's purring. Ino laid back down, but this time on a pillow, and rubbed Naruto's cheek, listening to him purr for a little while before she drifted back to sleep. When Naruto woke up, he blinked and thought, if I didn't know any better, I would swear I was in Ino's room. As his eyes darted around the room and thought, it is. How did I get here, and why is my arm so heavy? As he turned his head and blinked and thought, okay, either this is some kind of poison-induced dream, a genjutsu, or somebody is getting their ass whipped. As he bit his lip and tasted the blood and felt the pain and thought, okay, not a genjutsu, and I don't think you feel pain in dreams, so that means this is real. As he tried to scoot out of the bed and froze as Ino wrapped her arm around him and pulled him back toward her. Naruto thought, I seriously don't need this right now. How can I escape? As he looked around the room and his eyes landed on a teddy bear, and he concentrated, and a few seconds later he replaced himself with the bear. However, the bear just happened to have been on a shelf 6 feet off the ground, which was too small for Naruto to sit on, so he fell. Ino jumped up as she heard a loud crash and looked over and saw Naruto was upside down with his feet on the walls, and she blinked and looked beside her, seeing one of her teddy bears she got when she was younger, and thought a moment before falling back on the bed laughing her ass off. Naruto growled and said, laugh it up, why don't you? Why is it I keep waking up in your bed nearly n? Are you taking advantage of me while I am asleep? Ino stopped laughing and said, why the hell would I take advantage of you? The first time, I admit, I brought you up to my room, but when I went to bed this morning you were on the couch where I took care of you all night because your crazy ass teacher poisoned you and you ran a real high fever which could have killed you if it wasn't for me. Naruto frowned and asked, then how did I get up here, because the last thing I remember was passing out in the forest of death trying to fight my sensei. Ino sighed and said, I think it was my dad. Naruto scowled and asked, but why would he do that? I mean, sure, things are getting better, as he stopped talking and looked away. Ino smiled a little and said, things are getting better between us because we have had a few chances to talk. Something because of me and my attitude we haven't had a chance to do in many years. Naruto closed his eyes and said, Ino. Ino said, just shut up for now, Naruto. I understand you're confused. Hell, I am confused as you are. It will take time for us to figure out if we can be something more than friends of friends. If it takes you coming here half-s and needing doctored for us to talk like this, then I think you should train with that lady every day. Naruto glared at her and said, don't ever joke about that. Her idea of fun is have snakes chase me while she throws weapons at me, and when she catches me she beats the s out of me with her weapons and then licks my blood. Ino shivered and Naruto asked, where are my cloths? Ino said, front room, I washed them for you again. Naruto nods and goes for the door and stops and said, thanks for making sure I didn't s Ino, as he walked out of the room. Ino whispered, no problem, as she went and laid back down on her bed and waited until she heard the bell on the door ring before she went and locked the door and thought, maybe I should go talk to Miko. Naruto had just closed the door and was walking across the room when he heard a knock at the door. Naruto frowned and looked through the peephole in the door and thought, what's she doing here? Ino knocked again and said, Miko, are you home? It's Ino. Naruto frowned and began to change quickly out of his cloths hidden as he grabbed a bathrobe and put it on, changing into Miko, and she walked toward the door and opened it and said in a sickly sounding voice, oh Ino, it's you, what can I do for you? As she yawned. Ino asked, can I come in and talk? Miko said, I'm not really decent right now, pulling at the top of her bathrobe. Ino said, I don't mind if you don't. Miko sighed and stepped aside and Ino said, I guess you saw the sign on the door. Miko said, yeah, is everything okay? Ino said, I stayed up all night taking care of Naruto again and I was too tired to do my team training. Miko frowned and said, I guess Anko really let him have it again, huh? Ino nods and said, Miko, I'm confused and I need another girl's advice. Miko sat down and pulled her knees up under her and said, well, I don't know what advice I can give you, but let me hear you out. Ino said, well, I don't know. I mean, a month ago I was living a fantasy world and believed that Sasuke was my Prince Charming. Then because of what happened I started growing up and I really haven't thought of Sasuke in a while. Hell, I don't even add kun to his name anymore. Miko said, and what's wrong with that? Perhaps since you grown up some you see how much of an ass he was to you and decided you deserve better. Ino said, maybe, but that's just the beginning. I know we agreed to drop it, but I keep thinking about that kiss we had. Miko asked, what about it? Ino frowned and said, well, I got these weird feelings from it, like it's something magical, but. Miko, who had looked away, asked, but. Ino said, but now Naruto and I have started to talk a little bit and I think I am seeing the real him, the one he has hidden away to protect himself, and I can't describe it. When he smiles I feel like smiling, when he laughs I want to laugh, when H has been hurt I feel like crying. He's an amazing person. When we were playing soccer Sunday he did this most amazing shot that I am sure nobody but him could pull off, but yesterday when I saw how weak and sick he was, I couldn't stop worrying about him. I kept icing him down, washing the sweat off of him and trying to make him comfortable all night because I was afraid. I was afraid of what my life would be if he didn't recover. Miko, who had begun to rub her temples, said, Ino, I think I should help you with the kiss deal first. Your dad has promised me he won't tell anyone, but there's another reason I am here. I have MPD. Ino looked at her and said, so you have multiple personalities? Miko said, yeah, when I kissed you, that wasn't my real personality, one of my other personalities took over and did that while I struggled to get control. I admit I did like the kiss, but I have secrets, Ino, secrets that unless I could trust you with and you accepted there could never be a we. I am sorry for confusing you on that. Ino thought a moment and asked, is the person I am talking to right now the real you? Miko sighed and said, mostly. I can still feel the other personality in the back of my mind giving me advice, I guess you could say, but a part of me right now is that personality. Ino asked, how many personalities do you have? Miko said, right now 3. My regular one, the one that you met who is mostly like a big sister, and then another one who is ruthless. So far it hasn't killed anyone, but when it took over it hurt someone who had hurt me in the past. Ino frowned a little and asked, why haven't you told me this before? Miko said, I guess because I didn't want to make you scared of me. Ino's eyes softened and said, don't worry Miko, I won't be. Can you tell me something? Thought. Do you have feelings for me, Miko? Miko closed her eyes and said, some Ino. I don't know what they're though, and I can't be sure they're all mine or my other personalities. Ino said, but that still doesn't help me with Naruto. Miko bit her lip and said, someone once told me it will take time to figure out if you and him can be something more than friends of friends. Give it time. Ino snickered and then laughed and said, that's ironic, I told Naruto the same thing not even an hour ago. Miko said, great minds think alike, I guess. I hate to say it Ino, but I am really tired and not feeling well, can we talk some other time? Ino got up and said, sure, but can I ask you to do something first? Miko shrugged and Ino said, close your eyes. Miko closed her eyes and felt a pair of lips touch hers, and she opened her eyes a moment and closed them, and after a few moments they broke apart and Ino said, it is something magical. Almost as magical as rubbing Naruto whiskers. I guess I better go, as she quickly left. Miko closed the door and locked it, releasing the jutsu, and Naruto rubbed his cheeks and thought, she thinks my whiskers are magical. As a small blush appeared on his face. The next morning Naruto was walking toward Anbu headquarters when Anko appeared in front of him and said, change in plans for today SS Tain. The Hokage would like to see us, as she placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder and they shushined away. When they reappeared they were in the Hokage office and Naruto saw the third and said, hey Gigi, how's it going? The third said, pretty well Naruto. I have a mission for you and Anko. Naruto said, really, what is it? The third pulled out a scroll and said, "It's an B rank mission. Team 8 has captured a bandit that was raiding a town south of here. I have already given Anko the information where it is, so this is your mission briefing. Anko and Abiki both feel that you need to practice your interrogation skills, and that is what Team 8 is needing at the moment. The leader of the bandits who they captured has taken several women prisoner, including the mayor's daughter, and he is wanting us to find and rescue her." Naruto said, "So you want Anko and me too?" Loosen his tongue. The third said, "Anko is going mostly as an observer and to ensure your safety. This is your interrogation, Naruto." Naruto said, "But I only interrogated one person, and that was Mizuki team." Anko said, "Abiki and I both have a lot of faith in your skills, kid, so we want to see what you can do when someone's not holding your hand before we proceed any further in your training. Now get whatever you need and meet me at the south gate in an hour," as she shushined away. Naruto sighed and looked at the third, who said, "Good luck, Naruto." Naruto nods and quickly leaves. He went to his loft and began to pack and thought, "I need to practice sealing when I get back," as he quickly left. On his way toward the gate, Team 10 was heading toward the Hokage Tower, and Ino said, "Hey Naruto, what's with the pack?" Naruto said, "Hey guys, I got a mission out of town, so I can't talk right now or the sadistic bee is going to cut me up again." Ino said, "You're going on a mission with the lady who poisoned you?" Naruto blinked and asked, "How did you know I was poisoned?" as her team looked at her. Ino said, "When Dad got home he checked you and told me you were poisoned." Naruto nods and said, "Well, I better get going." Ino bit her lip and said, "Be careful." Naruto just nods and waves by as he runs toward the south gate. After he was gone, Choji asked, "So what's up with you, Ino? If I didn't know better I would swear that you're," as Shikamaru covered his mouth and said, "Don't finish that sentence. It's too troublesome to think about what will happen if you do." Ino looked confused and asked, "I'm what?" Choji said, "Nothing." Asuma chuckled and said, "Well, let's go get our missions, guys." Ino frowned as she took one last look at where Naruto went. Naruto arrived at the gates and saw Anko leaning against the wall, and she said, "You were almost late, SS-Tane, and I don't like to be kept waiting. Come on." As she ran out of the gate and Naruto began to follow her through the trees. As they traveled, Naruto thought, what was up with Ino? She looked worried. Damn it, what is wrong with me? Anko saw the look on Naruto's face and said, "Pay attention, SS-Tane, or you're going to run into a tree." Naruto blinked and realized he had been tree hopping without thinking and said, "Sorry." Anko said, "It's mission time. Whatever you're thinking about can wait until the mission is done, and I know you were not thinking about the mission." Naruto said, "Won't happen again." Anko said, "Good catch." As she threw a scroll to Naruto he almost didn't catch and looked confused, and Anko said, "It's 20 rose hips. I stayed up half the night working on that for you. You may get sick from it, but you won't, since I don't know how much immunity you got to them, but you got some now." Anko nods and said, "Thanks, sensei," as he pocketed the scroll. Anko asked, "You got your interrogation stuff right?" Naruto said, "Yeah, I got the poison you gave me, and then I got the scroll Abiki gave me." Anko nods and said, "Good, now shut up and keep up," as she increased her speed. A few hours later they came out of the trees and saw a town, and Naruto asked, "Where are we anyways?" Anko said, "This is Timber Town. It's a small lumber community that ships wood all over the elemental country. Let's go," as she landed on the ground and began to walk toward the town. Naruto jumped down and followed. As they walked through the town, Naruto saw how everyone was looking at them and thought, "They look like they're scared of us." Anko said, "They don't like strangers, kid. Don't let it get to you. In towns like this everyone knows everyone." Naruto nods and he heard some barking and looked, and Kiba said, "What the hell is a slash like you doing here, Naruto?" Naruto said, "Hello to you also, Kiba. Where's the prisoner?" A swirl of leaves appeared next to Kiba and Kurenai appeared, and she said, "Hello Anko, they sent you, huh?" Anko shook her head and said, "Nope, I'm the kid's bodyguard, this is his mission." Kurenai blinked and said, "I see, I'm Kurenai Yuhi, sensei of Team 8. Naruto said, "Naruto Uzumaki." Anko said, "Otherwise known as Doc 7. Naruto groaned and Kurenai's eyes went wide and said, "So this is the kid you've been talking about? Have you been informed about the prisoner yet?" Naruto said, just that H is some bandit who has been taking women prisoners and one of them is the mayor's daughter and you need me to find out what H has done with them. Kurenai said, he had a gang of 10 when we ran into them. We captured them all but the prisoner used an exploding tag on his own men, king 'em all. Naruto frowned and said, I see, is that all you can tell me? Kurenai nods and Kiba asked, Sensei, what are you telling Naruto all this about? H is the last of the academy who couldn't even cut it with his own team for screwing up their mission and was pulled. Naruto closed his eyes and thought, those books Ibiki gave me told me not to lose my cool, stay calm to enrage my enemy, and said, show me the prisoner, ignoring Kiba. Kurenai turned and looked at Kiba and said, when this is over you and I will be having a long talk, Kiba. Follow me, as she turned and began to walk toward a building. Naruto followed and Kiba was glaring at Naruto back and Anko stopped beside Kiba and said, I don't know where you heard that bulls from kid but the kid wasn't kicked off his team. He had impressed his sensei so much he was taken as apprentice by 5 different senseis. Now come on and watch the show because I may let you be the next person he interrogates, as she grabbed Kiba's shoulder and squeezed her nails making him flinch and pulled him along after her. Naruto walked into a room behind Kurenai and saw Shino and Hinata who blushed and Naruto saw a man in the corner asleep who was tied to a chair and Anko and Kiba walked in a few moments later and Naruto said, you might want to leave us because it might get messy, as he walked over toward a table and pulled out several scrolls. Kurenai said, I would normally agree with you Naruto but the prisoner has shown quite ingenious with trying to escape. Naruto looked at Kiba from the corner of his eyes and said, suit yourself, as he unsealed his coat which made Kiba flinch as he covered his nose and said, damn it dude, what's that smell? Naruto smirked and said, blood Kiba. What I do isn't always clean, and he unsealed the other items and thought, thank you Ibiki-sensei for all the supplies, as he began to unseal another scroll which contained the poisons and Anko said, remember kid, no more than 5cc. I don't want you king another one for fun. Naruto thought, thanks Anko, as he said, I know but it was too much fun to do it last time since his buddy had all the info I needed anyways. Now let's wake Sleeping Beauty, as he upped his coat on as he walked over and kicked the chair out from under the prisoner and he growled, wake up B, making everyone look at him wide-eyed. The man woke up wide-eyed as his head hit the ground and he glared at Naruto and asked, who the hell are you kid? Naruto stepped on his arm making the man flinch and said, they call me the doctor and you're my next patient, as he walked back over to the table and grabbed the bottle of poison and a needle. The prisoner asked, what are you going to do? Naruto looked at the bottle a moment and said, oh this. It's just a little poison that will help loosen your lips, as he raised the man's shirt and set the needle in his stomach and the man started to look a little scared. Naruto said, let's give that a few moments to start to work, as he walked over and pulled out a book and began to read. Kiba asked, what are you doing Slast? Naruto glared at him and said, shut the hell up before I make you. You see that shot I just gave him? It is a very painful poison that makes it where the victim feels all wounds worse than they actually are. What I do is I start at the feet and I begin cutting the F all the way up both legs. If my prisoner doesn't start talking by the time I reach his balls I give him another shot directly into his S and remove each pubic hair with a pair of tweezers before I use my scalpels to remove his balls without any painker and since I have been trained the human body so well I can make sure not to make a fatal cut and ensure my victim can be TD over and over again. If after I give him a S change he still doesn't talk, well you don't need all the organs and body parts to live. The man who was pale now hearing this along with the other genins said, wait, what is it you want to know? Naruto said, you tell me. I don't know anything about you. I get paid to make grown men cry while I get to see blood. If you tell me what you think I want to hear and if it's the truth then I will give you the antidote and stop. If you lie or don't tell me what interests me, well let's say I got some other poisons that will have you and I have always wondered how many teeth can be pulled out before the pain gets too much and a man SS, with a smirk on his face. Kurenai who was looking at Anko thought, my god, what the hell have you been teaching this kid Anko? Anko said, you know what kid, I think if you break him in an hour we can spend the rest of the time here seeing how much your reputation with the ladies is real. Naruto who had his feet on the table reading while he sat down said, sound fun? As he sat his book on the table and put his hands together and said, Kijbunshin no Jutsu, and two other Naruto appeared and Naruto said, begin with his feet. Both clones grabbed a scalpel and walked over to the man whose feet were in the air tied to chair legs and took off his shoes, and the man's eyes got wide as they began to cut on his feet, and he said after the second cut, all right, I will talk, I will talk. Naruto said, really, I don't hear anything, as his clones made another cut on his feet. The man said, all right, I admit I took the girls. The clones cut his feet again and Naruto said, already knew that. Don't care. The man screamed, they're alive. You stop and I will tell you where. Naruto shrugged and said, all I hear is S coming out of your mouth. You haven't actually told me anything. As he clones cut again on his feet and the man was beginning to really feel the pain. He said, they're at my real camp along with the other 30 women. Naruto said, strange, I don't believe you. You could be lying, as the clones cut him several times going up to his ankle. The man screamed, I'm not, they're alive in a prisoner wagon along with my brother. We got from village to village and capture women and sell them. Naruto said, blah blah blah, I've heard that story 100 times and most of the time is bulls. The man screamed, it's not. I'm telling the truth. If you stop I will tell you where the camp is. Naruto looked up from his book and asked, where? The man sighed in relief and the clones cut him again and asked, where? The man said, 4 miles south of here. Along the river. Naruto asked, how many people are with them? The man sat there a few seconds until another cut appeared and he screamed, 8. Naruto asked, any traps? The clones went to cut him at his knees and the man was getting scared and said, no, there's not traps, we always keep one guy awake and at night we take turns with the woman. Please stop. Kurenai and Anko both glared at the man and Naruto walked over said, lift the chair. His two clones picked him up and Naruto pointed toward Kurenai and Anko and said, all right B. We are going to check out this information. If it's right then you won't be hurt by me anymore, you lie and I give you several shots in your balls and have these two women here have their way with you. By the way, both hate men who take advantage of women, by the way they look ready to kill you. So anything you want to say. Just so you know I won't be leaving, so if they don't make it back I will spend all week torturing you. The man said, there's a ninja. H is the guy we sell the women to. H is supposed to be there sometimes this week. Naruto asked, got a name for this ninja? The man bit his lip and Naruto took a scalpel from a clone and held it at the guy's balls and the guy screamed, Rico, Rico Broogie. Anko whistled and said, things just got interesting. Let's go check this out, as she walked out of the room. Naruto hit the man on the back of the head knocking him out. As Naruto began to walk out, Kiba flinched when Naruto looked at him and walked out the door. Shino looked at the prisoner and thought, Naruto not the slast anymore. Kiba thought, I think H is snapped, what the hell happened to him? Hinata thought, what happened to you Naruto-kun? When Kurenai, Anko and Naruto got outside, Anko put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, good job kid. Naruto shrugged and said, it was easier this time. Kurenai said, I think my genins learned a lesson Naruto and I am sorry for what Kiba said. That's why I kept them all there. Naruto shrugged and said, it's okay Kurenai sensei. Kurenai asked, so what should we do about the prisoners? Anko said, let me handle it. Keep an eye on the kid here and I should be back in about 3 hours. Naruto asked, are you sure you don't want us to come along? Anko said, nah, I've ran into Rico before. H is a guppy. Sire. As she left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto sighed and said, I guess I can look around town, as he turned and started to walk away. Kurenai asked, do you want to train with my team while you wait? Naruto said, I would, but they're all scared of me now. I hate being feared, as he turned and began to walk through town. Naruto saw a building that caught his attention and he walked toward it, and as he walked inside he thought, well, this is interesting. As he walked in. Kurenai sighed as she walked back into the room where her team was and she asked, what's wrong with you three? Hinata asked in a stuttery voice, Sensei, what happened to Naruto-kun? Why was he like that? Kiba asked, what I think Hinata is trying to say is why did Naruto act like he was enjoying hurting that guy? Kurenai said, that's what tea experts do. You know how each of you were chosen to form a tracking team. Well, Naruto originally was going to be on an assault team, but since Naruto showed skills in other fields he was reassigned. Kiba said, but Sakura said that Naruto was reassigned because he was screwing up their missions. Kurenai was about to say something when the door busted open and Naruto ran in, kicking the hell out of the man, waking him up. Before anyone could say anything, he had pulled out a kunai and placed it to the man's end and said, "All right, Shide. Tell me the truth or I will kill you. What is Anko-sensei walking into?" The man said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Naruto esped the man in the leg and said, "Don't lie. One of the girls at the brothel told me how you were bragging how this was a trap for some shinobi from Konoha. Now tell me exactly what the hell is going on or I will kill you." The man smirked and said, "Whatever do you mean, Jinchuriki?" Kurenai stiffened and Naruto said, "What do you know about Akatsuki?" The man smirked and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Naruto frowned, hit him again, knocking him out, and said, "One of you take care of him." Anko-sensei walking into a trap. As he started to walk toward the door, Kurenai said, "Wait, Naruto, what's going on?" Naruto frowned and said, "I went into a gambling den to win some money, and like the one in Konoha, there's a brothel in the back, and one of the girls tried to pick me up to sleep with her. She slipped me a note and told me the missing girls were a trap and they're being held in the brothel." Each of the Konoha nins went wide-eyed and Naruto said, "Look, I got to go." Kurenai frowned, looking at the knocked-out man, and walked over and cut his throat and turned and said, "Come on. This whole thing is a set-up," as she ran toward the door and out it along with the rest of her team following and Naruto. Kurenai said, "Kiba, can you get Anko sent?" Kiba said, "Yes. Follow me," as he began leading the way. As they were jumping, Naruto took out a scroll and unsealed some rose hips and pocketed all but two and thought, "Hold on, Anko-sensei." About 15 minutes later they heard the sound of explosion and Naruto shot past the others after putting his hand in a half-dragon sign. He landed on a tree and saw Anko was in a defensive stance, and across from her was two men wearing black cloaks with red clouds, and one had a straw hat and the other was a blue-skinned man with a sword in his hands. Naruto jumped down, making all three look at him, and Anko said, "Get out of here, Gaki." The blue-skinned man said, "Well, looks like our trap did work after all. Hey, Itachi." Itachi said, "It seems so, kiss him." Naruto frowned and said, "I won't leave you here, sensei. They're after me." Anko said, "I know. Now get out of here." Itachi said, "We can't have that." As a tree grew behind him and held him in place as Kurenai appeared behind him with a kunai preparing to strike, when Kurenai was the one bound to a tree and Itachi started to bring a kunai down on her when a rose whip hit his hand, making him drop the kunai. Everyone looked over at Naruto and bugs began to fly from the forest toward Kisame and Itachi started going through hand signs and a fire dragon shot out and consumed the bugs. Kurenai broke free and tried to Itachi, who jumped back, and Kisame charged Kurenai but had to jump back as Anko shot snakes at him and he cut him apart with his sword. Kisame frowned and a shout of "Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu" drew everyone's attention as the entire clearing was filled with Narutos. Kisame smirked and began to cut them apart, causing them to go up in smoke. Itachi saw a group heading toward him and he threw a shuriken and flashed through hand signs, and the one turned into 30 and destroyed all the clones in its path. Naruto thought, Anko said, "Gaki, whip them to hell." Naruto blinked and thought, "Oh yeah, the poisons," as he began to swing his second whip and his first one toward Itachi, and Itachi grabbed one whip with his hand and yanked it away and said, "This is annoying." Naruto said, "And you look like an older, gayer Sasuke." Itachi suddenly exploded, destroying all the clones near him and sending debris into the air. Naruto, who was also close enough, was blown back into the ground. Itachi appeared above Naruto with a kunai in his hand when Anko appeared in front of him and said, "Leave this one to me, Gaki, take the fish," as she kicked Itachi in the stomach and he flew back a little and charged her. Naruto took the chance to get up and ran toward Kurenai, who was fighting Kisame, and thought, "Where are the others at?" as he created two more rose whips. Kurenai, who was trying to hold Kisame's sword back with two kunais, was not prepared when he kicked her away, and he went to hit her in the head with his sword when a whip hit him in the head and in the arm, and he growled and said, "That's it, kid, I am going to chop off your arms," as he kicked Kurenai in the head, making her pass out before he charged toward Naruto, who kept trying to hit him with his whip as he began to back up. Naruto was getting desperate when a shout of "Gatsuga" was heard and two twisting tornado flew into Kisame, who turned into water. As the tornado stopped, there were two Kiba and a voice screamed, "Enough," As everyone looked and saw Kisame holding Hinata passed out, and he said, Itachi, grab the boy and let's go. I'm tired of playing with these weaklings. Anko glared and said, you can't have him. Kisame said, wrong. What's more important, the Jinchuriki or the heiress to the Hyuga clan? You see, we have planned to use this trap over and over again until you decided the Jinchuriki was ready to do a field interrogation. We heard about him and knew sooner or later he would come to us. I never would have thought it would work on our first attempt though. Naruto frowned and said, you're a Katsuki, aren't you? Kisame smirked and said, that's right, but how did you know? Naruto looked at Itachi, who was where he was fighting Anko, who was now beside Naruto, and he looked at his hand and saw a bruise with some blood and thought, so that's one poison hit, and said, tell me something first, Sushi. Since I know what you want and it will kill me, was I at least good enough with my whips to hit the real you? Kisame said, yeah, you got me a couple of times. Naruto looked at Itachi, who had remained silent, said, if I agree to go with you, then will you release her? Kurenai-sensei out from your kick and Anko tired from fighting. Itachi, if I heard his name right earlier, took out all Shinobugs, and Kiba needs to worry about his sensei and teammates. Will you spare them and release her? Itachi said, yes we will. Anko said, you can't do this, kid. They will kill you. Naruto said, shut up, Snakeup. I know what I am doing. Take teammate and leave. Once I can't feel your chakra anywhere close by, so I know you're all safe, I will go with them. Remember, a good attack is the one that you plan ahead, prepare for and act at the right time. They planned this and caught us by surprise. At least I was good enough to hurt them both once. Anko glared and said, all right Gaki. I will play it your way, but if I ever see you again I will kill you myself. Kisame said, you won't be. Trust me. Naruto glared and said, Kiba, grab Hinata. Kiba growled and slowly walked toward Hinata and took her from Kisame. Shino appeared by Kurenai, and Anko walked over and put her arm around Kurenai, who Shino was picking up, and said, it was fun, kid, as they all started to leave. Kisame smirked and said, a bunch of cowards. Itachi looked at Naruto and his eyes shifted, and the next thing Naruto knew he was tied to a cross, and Itachi appeared and said, welcome Naruto-kun to Tsukuyomi. In this world I control everything, and 3 days in here is a second in the real world. Naruto glared and said, hello Wheezy. It's been what, 7 years? I recognize your scent as one of my trusted Anbu guards. Itachi said, something like that. So how long before the poison chaos? Naruto eyes widened and Itachi said, I noticed it when I made the exploding clone. My chakra control slipped so much I almost wasn't able to replace myself with the rose whip I caught. I checked it and found it contains high levels of poison. Naruto asked, why are you talking to me? I thought you were sent to capture me. Itachi said, I have my reasons. Now how long until IS? Naruto said, I don't know. The more you move the faster US. Itachi thought a moment and said, I see. You don't have the antidote, do you? Naruto shook his head no, and then I want you to do something for me. Naruto frowned and asked, why should I trust you? I recognize your name, Itachi Uchiha, the man who killed all the Uchiha except for Sasuke team. Itachi looked at him and said, that's because I was ordered to by members of the council. My clan was planning on betraying Konoha. Naruto frowned as the world changed. The world Naruto saw. Itachi, dressed in his Anbu uniform, stood before 3 people, and a man with one arm said, so do you understand your orders, Itachi? You are to kill all of the Uchiha clan and track down Uchiha Madara and spy on him until we can kill him. A woman Naruto recognized as an elder advisor said, as you know, Uchiha Madara is the one who sent the Kyuubi to attack Konoha. He has found some way to stay alive even after all these years. Sarutobi refuses to see the truth about how dangerous he is as well as the threat he represents. Itachi said, I understand, because my clan is preparing to kill the council and the Hokage. They have become delusional just as Madara has, but I will only do it if you allow me to spare my brother. That way our bloodline continues and he can reclaim our clan's honor. The third person, another elder advisor said, agreed. The world changed back and Itachi said, Madara Uchiha is the true leader of Akatsuki. He hides behind a mask with a spiral design on it. As you are now, he will extract the Kyuubi King you and release it on Konoha King, my brother. I know I told my brother I cared him all to test my power, but I wanted him to redeem our family honor while I took the dishonor my clan has caused itself. Naruto frowned and asked, what is it you want me to do? I can see you have already accepted your death. Itachi said, I want you to kill Madara Uchiha, and tell Sasuke the truth while giving him a scroll I have on my body. It contains the mission orders. Do not trust anyone else with it until he has read it. I will stalk him long enough for him to enter after I am you can escape. When that happens I want you to take both our heads along with the rings on our fingers and the sword Kisum has. It's special. It has the ability to eat chakra from your enemies and give it to you. Those rings are special also. They are required to extract demons, and without them Madara can't recruit new members. Naruto sighed and said, I will do it since you saved my life several times when I was younger. The world faded around them and Itachi said, Kisum, can you still detect them? I don't want to be followed to the extraction site. Kisum said, yeah, a few more minutes. Itachi said, good, as he appeared behind Naruto and knocked him out before Naruto had a chance to react. Once Naruto was passed out he picked up Naruto's body and said, let's go, as they both took to the tree. Kisum said, I can't believe how easy that was. Itachi said, they were weak genins, nothing more. Kisum said, but that Anko was pretty good, as he rubbed his head. Itachi said, yes, she was. About half an hour later Kisum landed in a clearing and was breathing hard and said, damn, what's going on? This is the same clearing we were in earlier. Itachi frowned and said, Genjutsu. I had turned my Sharingan off to conserve chakra so I didn't notice. Kisum rubbed his chest and said, I don't feel too good. Something's wrong. Itachi said, just sit down and relax a few minutes and see if you feel better. Kisum asked, what about the kid? Itachi said, I can deal with him. Kisum nods and sits down and said, maybe you're right, as he closed his eyes. Around 10 minutes later Itachi checked Kisum and picked up Kisum's sword and cut off his head, and he walked back over to Naruto and created a Kichibunshin as he laid down on the ground next to Naruto and nods. The clone then hits Naruto again, knocking him out, and he performs some hand signs and his hand glows green and moves toward Naruto's right eye. A few hours later when Naruto awoke he felt his headband over his right eye and thought, what happened? He looked beside him and saw the body of Itachi next to him, and he went wide-eyed seeing that Itachi was missing his right eye. Naruto looked around and moved his headband back and winces from the pain and is forced to cover it back up and thought, what happened? He looks down and sees a pair of scrolls next to Itachi's body, and he picked them up and read the first one, seeing it was the orders for the Uchiha. He frowned and picked up the second and read, Naruto-kun. By now I am and you have most likely saw my body is missing its right eye. That eye is now in your right eye. I have given it to you as a gift. It has the power of Amaterasu. Do not use it until you have talked to Hatake Kakashi. Tell him I have done the same as Obito. He will understand and help you with this eye. Use it to kill Madara Uchiha. Itachi Uchiha. Naruto frowned and thought, I will Itachi, but not because you asked me to. Madara was the man who sent Kyuubi to Konoha and the reason I grew up hated and alone without my parents. He got up and felt dizzy before falling back down to his knees and thought, okay, this is going to take some getting used to. As he stood up again and walked over to the severed head of Kisum and grabbed the head along with the ring and the sword and walked over to Itachi and lifted the sword and thought, it's heavy, as he dropped it down, shaving Itachi's head off before grabbing the ring on his finger and took one of the cloaks and wrapped both heads in the cloak before he looked at the sky and began heading toward where he believed Konoha was. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.